So, yeah, hello, my name is Ivan Lobashev, and today we will speak about testing AI-based products or non-determinism in AI as a new challenge for QA. So let's start with few words about who I am. So I applied to the medical university, but ended up in computer science. Also, I used to hate coding, so I went into QA, and now I'm working on a coding agent and write tons of code in the different languages. And I also have over 6 years of experience in QA automation, full stack QA, now even that, QA leads, AI QA, project manager, product owner, and other roles. Yeah. And also in free time, I'm training compete in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I guess here is the main fact that I'm professional dushnila. In English, it's nitpicker. Like I was forced to translate this word, but there is no right translation. So I'm just dushnila. Just memorize this word, please. And today's presentation, I based mainly from my experience from Zencoder. So let's also add a few words about this product. So Zencoder is a great app or extension, which the main goal is boost your performance using some coding agents, custom agents, repo info, etc., etc. So it's something based on AI. And today we will work in such plan that, first of all, I will give you all inputs for you to feel my pain. Then we will go through some challenges which we faced during the testing this product, and then I will just share some great stuff, and in the end you will have a time to ask some questions for me. So let's begin. Actually, I came in a global way, because how do you even test a product where the same flow can lead to the different result, and the same result can be reached by different flow? So how to validate the result at all? Also, how to validate the result when you don't have acceptance criteria, because in the start we really don't have any acceptance criteria in our product. And also there were 12 functionalities, and each one influence each other. So one is add, another is review, another is editing, another is just testing it. So you really cannot say where something went wrong. And there are also huge amounts of test cases, so the complexity grown exponentially. And speaking about complexity, let's back in facts. So in the time of the initial release, we need to support 12 major functionality. And it was really small functionalities like add, edits, delete. It was really big and standalone features. Also, on average, each of these functionality had 3 different execution variants. And in each 3 execution variants, it behaved differently, so we need to test all of them. Also, our plugin supports 7 programming languages. So all of these 12 functionalities with 3 different execution variants had to work good enough on 7 supported languages. And also, it had to work across 2 IDE families. And it was VS Code and JetBrains. And if VS Code works more or less like VS Code itself, JetBrains is fully flagged big family where each IDE has own quirks and features. And also some of these IDE have some additions. For example, PyCharm community and PyCharm Professional was 2 different IDE when we did the first release, unfortunately. And also what makes some difficult here that we create a plugin. So it's not IDE, and in some cases we just couldn't, for example, fix some issues just because we work on a different layer. Also, we support 3 operation system, and usually it's not a big deal. It's totally okay to support all of them. But here we have a case that Mac, Windows, and Linux support file paths really different. And in our case, when we work a lot with the RAG and some shell tool, it became a very big challenge. So it was too much functionality, so it became especially my challenge here. And also in the top of that, we have massive additional frameworks, runners, languages version, and terminal types that we need to support. And all of these things need to work good enough for the strict deadline, because we have really a great press release in some web summit, something like that. And at the time of the first release, we just had a team with 2 QAs who actually test the product, and one's that who help us with the infrastructure. So it was really beautiful house. And here I want to kind of do advertisement time, because the second QA, Galina Zoltarova, is brilliant specialist. So Galina, hello. Yeah, and I'm really glad that we have her in our team. And today in the presentation, I want to build on some challenges and in my experience, how we deal with them, as I already said. So let's begin. As usual, everything started with a manual testing. So we started and we quickly realized that some exploratory testing isn't enough at all. So because we don't know these 7 languages, like neither me or the second key, but we still need to validate the output. And also, like usually manual testing start with stages of defining scenarios, then generating test data and decide what we count as a pass. And in all these 3 stages, we face some problems. Speaking about scenarios, we are not programmers, so we didn't instantly know the most relevant scenarios. And speaking about that task and K automation task, it wasn't really relevant because it's not our stakeholders. Speaking about test data, as I said, we didn't know these 7 programming languages, but we still need to work with it. And speaking about like defining what we count as a pass, we didn't have any acceptance criteria, so nothing solid to ensure the testing. And probably you wonder like how we solve all these issues. And speaking about scenarios, we just invited the vibe testing. So no one else call it in this way. And like spoiler, it's not like judging who is a bad guy or a good guy. We just like start solving some programming task which we invented ourselves. So for example, I usually create some website to sell something. Like in most cases, it's some books or something like that. Then I cover some functionality with unit tests and end-to-end tests. And then I just break the whole project and ask agent to fix it. And then I just look how agent behaves and how we solve the problem. So with the scenarios more or less covered, we hit the languages problem. And like because each language has its own specific tasks and some features. And you might say just pick the most popular one. And yeah, we did. But then after release, it's turned out that PHP is extremely popular now among our users, and we need to validate it. But it's like old, and I still don't understand how to use it. And speaking about acceptance criteria, so with no acceptance criteria, we just like based all our validation based on some feelings. And surprisingly, it became kind of a metric. So let's continue with vibe testing. We're probably wondering, what is it? And no, it's not exploratory testing, but I guess like most of you heard about concept of vibe coding. So yeah. You heard about this concept? Nice. So it's not related, so we don't need it. We just like the word vibe, and so that we need something with the word vibe, and it's like so magically connected with what we do. Because in our understanding, vibe testing is when the whole like expected result is our own satisfaction as a user. So how smooth the flow feels, how well AI behaves, and which tool like call he used to resolve your issue. Maybe like more tools, or maybe think longer and then like give you the result, or maybe execute a lot of commands in the shell tool. So in other words, the entire validation process is based on our feelings. So when we tweak the model, modify prompts, or adjust weights in the model call, we just like simply answer the question. So does it feel better? Maybe like AI agent start bullying you and say like doing this usual stuff when he breaks everything. For example, drop your database, and they say it was wrong decision, so sorry, I cannot do anything with it. And in the start, it was fully manual process and wasn't like a really efficient one, but still like we use it even now, and it shows really well. The next challenge is bug reporting, because like usually when you start testing something, after it you need to report that something went wrong. So like here we face even more trickier case, because like usually during the interview I ask guys like, what would you do if a developer couldn't reproduce the issue on their machine? But here the case really different, because even I couldn't reproduce the issue which I reported myself like 5 seconds ago. And it's even like harder when we face some issues from users or teammates, because they don't create such beautiful reports as I create. And it's kind of an issue, but maybe it's a feature, like it's more a feature of AI agent and LLM, that with the exact same input, with the exact same data, they could produce really different output. And yeah, like maybe you heard about the concepts of like temperature, model weights, but it doesn't really work when you have really complex layer between like LLM and your agent. So they don't save you in most of the case. So like with the bug reporting, I usually have three types of the issue. So the main one was that the flow is not deterministic. So even like when I create once again beautiful reports, like this flow not really lead to the bug which I reported in the 1% cases. So developer can report the issue. Also, like agent can come to the correct result, but with 10 different passes, and we need to validate when it's okay and when it's not okay. And also, like in most cases, result is pure shit. So we need to understand why it's shit and prove it to developers that it really works bad. And probably wondering how we deal with it. And speaking about reproduce, we just resign. And we understand that sometimes we really cannot reproduce the issue. So we added as much logs as we can for all places and layers, and it still isn't enough, but we still keep working on it. And each QA in our team already know like all parameters which really can affect this functionality. So in this case, when we cannot reproduce the issue or like we don't have stable reproduce, we at least know the right vector, and we can show this vector to the developer how to fix it. Speaking about the correct result, but with the different flows, like here, everything also based on our experience and vibe and also competitor analysis. So in most cases, we know how agent should fix which problem. And speaking about results, actually, like the answer here is using evals, but like evals is really a huge topic, and we will speak about it later. But just spoiler, we found our metrics, and now it works much better than it was. The next point is test data, because like here, it was a really interesting point how to generate it. And this slide, I want to start with some conversation with you. So now you know all my inputs that we need to test AI coding agent. So how would you choose the valid data? Not only how, but also where would you choose this data? So let's use some hands and then I ask you.
Generate with AI.
It's yeah, it's a tricky point. Yeah, it's like in some cases it's right, but yeah, we will speak about it later, and you will understand why it's not so easy.
Company in public repositories.
Company only company.
No, the public as well, like GitHub.
Yeah, nice one.
I go to sending out this programming language and ask developers from there to UI and sub result.
So like go to all conference in your town and then just like ask all developers there to generate a code. But like we still need a lot of like examples, but it's great, and I hope we.
You remember all ages ago there were books with CD-ROMs with example codes you could use it.
I actually I'm only 25 years old, so I don't remember such books. Yeah, but great point. Like I hope we knew about it.
It will have some kind of like coding assessment during the process. Oh no, if you're giving the 10 tests, maybe you can collect all the results, but basically the same test but different implementation.
Nice, nice.
That's smart.
Yeah, nice move. Any more? Okay. Yeah, so like the first point was extremely right, because the first point which came to our mind back then was to use open source libraries. And if they are popular, it's even better because we can use it as some marketing strategy with some contributions there. But so it like I literally searched in Google like really popular open source libraries plus programming languages, then like choose the most beautiful one, cloned it, and start working on my own tasks there. And also like open and closed issue from GitHub became my test cases, because speaking about closed issue, we already know the kind of ideal solution, and we also know the request. So it was really intense scenario for me. But here it's like the point is that model creators aren't stupid. So in most cases, they already teach their model based on these open source libraries. So the reason why we started looking at the creation date of these repos, because like this data became kind of a synthetic, and all of agents magically pass all our tasks. And sometimes search took too long. So I used my own pet project, and it was my favorite one, because I fully knew the code base and all my tests become really meaningful. And I cannot say the same with these open source libraries because they have thousands of lines of code, and sometimes I don't really understand them. Even in case when we have this programming languages which I don't know. So like in this case, I just started thinking like maybe we can generate the test data using LLM. And here I also want to ask you, so what do you think about this approach? Can we generate test data for LLM using another LLM? So what do you think? Maybe some advantages or
will happen. Regression will happen, or what's it called when the model collapse, when it use bad data which is generated by an LLM to train it or to do something with it, the quality of output will be even worse. It was proven on images. Did you read this experiment when they fed an image example to Midjourney? The result of the Midjourney fed to Midjourney again and again and again, and the image degraded really quickly.
I didn't read this article, but with the code it's the same, yeah. So it's one of the disadvantages. Any other thoughts?
Well, we carrying LLM, but Nook is a whiteboard style. So we need to check the data, we need to validate. We had some expert in this programming language to validate the what I get.
Yeah, it kind of works, but we still need like 7 different developers which know 7 different languages for this task.
In other way, you can't use it for it.
Okay, whiteboard in learn is reachable. It might be key.
Yeah.
Let's make one of the cases, because most probably in some cases is a code base that your agents in working with maybe was written by another agent, so it's a book reported particularly inside this. It's like that all.
Yeah. And I saw hand.
Yeah, I don't know with the code, but for example, documents, if you have a representative sample, you can then further generate further like variations of the same document with AI. I mean, it's quite nice approach, but I don't know how it to play.
So your version like take the ideal one and then just create a copy with the AI?
Well, not copy, but variation.
Very okay. Yeah, so like a one code, but it's different. Yeah. So let's speak about this point. And yeah, you really can't just take and generate data using LLM, just because when you like behave in this way. So here you task agent, please generate test data for me to test it. So usually just generate some really synthetic data, and like even if your agent doesn't work at all, he will pass all of these tests. So like in case when you don't need to validate the output, probably it works. For example, for functional tests, I can use this approach. But when I need to validate the output, I should change the approach. So like my functionality also was code completion. It's when like it's like help you to write code in the editor. So for this task, I just like wondering that I need some different code structure, and I started like discussing with the agent to generate some, once again, website to, for example, sell books. So we just generated a fancy website, but instead of like increasing the beauty of this website or adding some great functionalities, I was focused on the code structures. So for example, for check one-line completion, I generated a method. Like I went to the class with a lot of one-line methods in it, and then just deleted the most obvious one. Then like my test was to come to this file, trigger code completion in the right spot, and check that we like produced something relevant to these missing methods. With some other metrics, but we'll also cover it later today. So in this case, we don't like ask agent to generate some test data for like some task. We just behave like it's general coding task. So like still it wasn't like really imperfect, but we improve it and improve it and improve it, and then it came really great for all our evaluations. And still like for now we use this test data for our functional and evals, functional tests and evals. And like here we have another problem. So like this like huge amount of cases which we need to run, especially like when we have different repos, different languages and different IDE, it was impossible to test all of these things manually. So we need to automate it. And here we also have some problems because like all our tests become flaky just because like today agent decide to skip some tests. Today he wants to call more tools and add some tests. So their whole flow will become flaky. And also traditional search doesn't work for us because like in general not a binary things, and you cannot use some expect like full image text or just speaking about some binary thing. If we have code compression in file, it doesn't really save us from some work. And also like most of the case test before even reaching the expectations, so we don't know if like we create, for example, good code or not good code. So we start solving this task, and the first was to add some strict prompts and test data. Actually, like it helps in some cases. So like in most cases, I just add a strict instruction for the agent what to do, and what is even more useful for us, what not to do. So the task was to make no room for creativity for the agent. And yeah, like it stabilized test, but then like our logic became more complex, and it doesn't save us from the 100% flackiness. So we start trying other things. So for example, Explorer, it's a black magic, so we didn't add it to the production code, but we added if checks to the tests. So like if agent sees this button, he clicks this button. If agent sees this button, he clicks this one. And like here, it helps with some cases, but still it was too unstable and really hard to maintain, and was just like feel bad because you include if to the test, and usually like if you need if in test, just add another test. So we moved to the generalized steps. So it's already not if structure, but it's while structure. It is also bad, but it's like helped a bit more than if checks. So like agent, like in case when we don't care about the flow, we just need to verify the result, and something like after something happened, we just added the while structure for agent to pass all of the things we met. And it's also black magic, and it's really hard to maintain as well. So we kind of find a compromise here that like we added shared locators. So in my case, it was save and save all button. So and the difference between them is really tiny. So the save button usually appears when we change only one file, and save all appears when we change 2 and more files. So in most cases, I don't really care which button appears, but sometimes agent decides not only fix the file, but also update some packages on files with some new version of something. So like it's already added a lot of stability to our test, but it wasn't still enough, but we still use it. So we added feature flags, and we also decompose test more. So what do I mean under the feature flags? So we added some text to the test which can automatically perform some actions. So for example, apply changes, save the code, or run the shell tool automatically. And like I usually decompose the test in this way that like one test checks that we can go to this button and just click on it, and in all other cases this button will be clicked automatically using feature flags, because we already checked the functionality that it works. And also like in the bottom we have mocks, and probably it like was the first thing which came to your mind, but here it's not so easy as usual, because usually we mock some functions to test or add some other things, but here we like it wasn't really effective for us to mock any API level, so we need to now LLM like mock LLM answers. It's only can help for us, and we're still work in progress, and I hope like in the near future we will have some results. And we didn't also implement it yet because like our company decided to use full intense scenarios, and I guess in some cases it's okay, but now we have too much cases to not use this feature. Yeah, when we were fighting the flackiness in tests, we reached even more hard questions. So how to validate the result? So like I said, usual expects with, for example, for code completion doesn't work because you have too much edge cases. You'll have like one line, this is like a multi-line inside the line, outside the line, when you have only one type of brackets in the end of the line, another. So like, and usually like LLM behaves really in different ways, so you cannot use these expects. But what works, it was added LLM as a judge in our steps. So how my test look like for code completion? I kept some small repos with some typical tasks and also with some ideal solution. And as a first step in each test, I usually save this ideal solution so some const for my future work. Then I open this file, trigger code completion, then save this value to another const. And then before the magic starts, I usually add some sanity checks. So for example, if I know that generated method should include some while structure, I check that while structure is presented as in actual code. And then we started adding some LLM checks. So usually, like in most cases, these three prompts are enough. So the first prompt was to compare the actual result is this ideal solution with some like prompt like please compare this compare these two functions if they have the same output, the same like behavior, and etc, etc, etc. So we just compare them. The second one was to check if the code is syntax correct. So like the main point of code completion is generate normal code which you can use in your life. And the third one was to check the code quality. So here we usually check some like best practices, security, readiness, and so on. And then we just usually like have the minimum score which we need to do, because like in the third one we usually like I ask a model to estimate it from 1 to 10, and for example if we have less than 6, then we fail the test because like it's too bad in code, and if we have more it's totally okay. And also like the point that we can save this value and have some diagram with degradation or upgrading our models. And also like another point here that it's like really another amount of money which we spend on our runs, because here you also need to do some performance testing, but it's not usual performance testing. You need to think about latency, tool calls, LLM calls, etc. And like memorize that all LLM calls cost some money. So each my end-to-end run costs some money to the company. It's not like usual amount of money which is in the website, something like that. It was much bigger results. But we still need to validate end-to-end test on each PR. We still need to do some nightly. We still need to do some regression on releases, and it was just huge amount of money. But it's also like another topic, so it's just for you to think about it. But yeah, today I don't want to focus on it. And let's move on and let's switch to benchmarks. And here I want to start with some spoilers. I hope like most of you will know what is it, but I will open the definition later. That for each product and for each feature, benchmark set will be really different. So for example, for code completion and unit test agent, we have extremely different benchmark set. And like in most cases, you don't need to create your own benchmarks, just because like hundreds of guys already invented a huge amount of them, so we just need to adapt. But I don't know, maybe it's lucky that in my team we usually create some agents which doesn't have properly benchmark on the market. So like today I will speak about my experience, how we create benchmarks, how we run them, and which challenges did we face there. So let's start with some definition of benchmarks. So let's ask Google, what is it? Yeah, it's like when we spend some tokens, which I know that cost some money, just to have definition of benchmarks, it's really painful for my heart. Yeah, so Google says benchmarks are standards of reference points used to compare performance, quality, or efficiency of something against similar system or processes in the industry. So it's really a long and official definition, but here, like now how I see it, so benchmark it's kind of a test which have really specific data, and the key point of benchmarks is some metrics. So usually it's not focused on like path flow, like flow passed or not, and which flow passed or not. So we just focus on the result for you to collect some data, analyze, like for you to analyze it, to compare with other models for other setup. So it's kind of a competition now. So like I guess some of you heard that like our agents usually have a competition in SVE bench. And here like we have a list of really popular benchmark from the market. So for example, for code agent, it's S4E bench, and the S4E bench is just like focused on resolving some GitHub issues. So in the end, you have created pull requests which need to work, and we estimated some metrics. Commit eval or bug bench focused on the agent, like how agent can read the file and fix the issues and analyze the broken code. Code actual eval actually like based on some tool calls, so how agent can use tool calls to resolve some issue. And the terminal bench is also like some general bench, but was mainly used to check how we can use the terminal. And for code completion, in the end, we use exarepo bench. It was like the main purpose here is just to check in real repos that code which we generated just compile in the files and just works as expected. But like it's also a huge topic, and like for example, benchmark has different types. But like I guess it's another topic in another presentation from me. So let's like have a quick scan. So usually during my test, I faced with a functional test, evals, and benchmarks. So let's understand what's the difference between them. So functional test usually validates the flow. So it's just to answer a question like how like well our flow feels and works. Evals, it's something really near like testing and research. It's like something in between them, because it's usually just check how well AI behaves, how human like it, and other metrics which we can add there. And benchmarks, so they don't focus on the flow at all. So we usually create benchmarks for them like to pass like in 100% scenarios. So like in most cases, benchmark we use to analyze the result and check some metrics and use it for some competition. And yeah, in evals, usually like even don't include some flows, because like in evals we can use we can use it as a expected result in the test, as we saw with code completion. And like it also can be some another subject. So for example, OpenAI evals, deep eval, or long chain eval, they use just for analyze the data which we have. So in other words, functional tests answer the question, does the system work correctly? Evals answer like how intelligent, stable, or useful is the behavior, and the benchmark just like answer the question, how good are the results. And today presentation, like I based on my experience with my agent of unit tests, and also like some minute of advertisement, that unit test agent is a great agent to generate unit tests. And like most of you, I guess, here, and you will say that it's not my work to generate unit tests and write unit tests. But like when it comes to some infrastructure code and some shader libraries, it's really a great practice to have it covered with unit tests. And here the agent can just do all of this dirty work for you. Usually benchmarks like break in 3 stages. So it's test data, tasks, and metrics. So let's speak about each of them. Speaking about test data with the unit tests, it wasn't really big challenge for us, because we decided not spend too much time to make our benchmarks kind of real and not synthetic. So we just take the medium complex code and just started some experiments with different setup. So for example, we checked how well our agents feel when we already have some unit tests in repos, and how well it behaves when we remove this unit test, and some other great experiments which we did. So, but in general, we just cover the well-structured repo with some unit tests. And speaking about tasks, here we have really great practice that you need to have different level of tasks. So usually it's easy, medium, and hard. And for example, for unit test agent, it will be that the easy level, it's cover some function with the unit tests. Medium level, it will be like cover divide function with unit tests, and the hard level was to like cover some class where we have all mathematic methods in it with some unit tests. So in most cases, we don't change the metrics, but we also can do this one as well. So we usually just change the test data where we run exactly the same tasks. And speaking about test data, I also want to ask like for you to brainstorm. Like I will share our answers, but I want you to think about it. So like usually our test looks like that we just have a piece of code, then we generating a test, and here we have unit test. But how, like which metrics, what kind of a metrics would you choose to validate that these generated unit tests are actually good?
Coverage, if it covers every single line of the code.
Okay, it's one of the metrics.
Yeah. Branching language.
Could you please repeat it louder?
The different branches.
It covers all the branches in the code.
Okay.
Cyclomatic complexity of those.
Introduce rotation testing.
Yeah, that's good. This is beautiful.
Any other thoughts?
Plus or not.
Nice. The main one. Does it run, first of all? Okay, so let's go to our metrics. And yeah, like the first one, the test starts and pass. That is the first thing which like your unit test need to do. The second was to test or if test cover all necessary scenarios. The third one, that code isn't shitty, and we have different metrics here, but just like to have it short.
Shittiness.
Yeah, we at least need to have not shitty code. And yeah, like another point why we usually have unit tests in our system, and it's when we change the logic. Usually unit tests need to break and we need to update the unit test. So it was another metric which we used. So if we change the code, the test should fail. And usually benchmarks, it's like really a huge amount of code. So let me describe it in a few words. So the first step was always to open the repository and run our program. Then like ensure the chat always ends with some unit test coverage. No matter what the data trigger, it brings the chat to completion. So here it wasn't the black magic to use if and while plus if and all of these things. So we usually use it in benchmarks on a daily basis. Then we like another step was to run generated unit test and verify that they pass. The next step was to evaluate the code quality based on specific criteria and define its scale with a lot of metrics, but also with this like from 1 to 10. The next one was to modify the source code and run the test again to trigger the failure. And here it was hard task. So usually like all of them run for easy and medium, but this one with the modified source code was added only for the hard level of task for our benchmarks. And then the main point just to collect results for each item and start analyzing them. So it was really a nice experience to do it with unit test agent and do some experience. And here we also face some challenges for, like, I want to start with some self-made bench. So you will spend really huge amount of time to find proper metrics, because like in most cases you just create some false positive metrics of data and then you run your benchmark and see like that your agent is brilliant, but then when you start using it, it's just really bad. Also, like in our example with code completion, we spent huge amount of time creating these test data and creating metrics and analyzing reports. Then just like big bench bench come and our need to be replaced just because it's much better than ours. And also it's in most cases it's really hard to run, and it's really long time which you need to run benchmark, so it has really a long feedback loop. And speaking about general bench, so usually on the bench so our models looks really nice, but in fact it's really shit. So we have really huge amounts of examples where we saw that, wow, we have beautiful model, let's use it. We saw that beautiful results on this FAE bench, but then we added to our agent and it was just bad. So we even didn't push it to production. Like I hear right here that sometimes it's hard to run, but in most cases it's really hard to run. And I even know some examples where the general bench, like when we see the metrics and we see the test data, is brilliant, but we just couldn't run it. With the whole research team and the whole QA team, we just even couldn't like start in our Docker setup. Yes, like sometimes it's really hard to stop for your agent because like they just general and not for your agent. So you need to write custom code. You need to change which tools the agent use and how it use. So it's sometimes takes time to do it. Also, it has the same long feedback loop because sometimes some benchmarks run for us for like 14 hours or something like that. And sometimes it doesn't match with your tasks. So again, like I likely have this team with end-to-end tests, unit tests, and for end-to-end agent, we don't have proper benchmarks. So we could use like some general benchmarks, but they really didn't suit our purpose. So we decided to create our own. For the same with unit tests, the same with code completion, and the same with end-to-end tests. And here, like, let's summarize what we did. So we kind of understand how to automate the non-deterministic AI flows. We also look after some approaches to select the data from AI products. Also understand what the vibe testing is in the real world. In real world, yeah. So how to work with the expectations and verify the test results under non-determinism. Also difference between automation tests, evals, and benchmarks. Also how to apply some like general benchmarks and custom benchmarks in practice. And why it's important to remember that every run costs some money. And now I would really happy to answer your question and also here. Yeah. And also here my LinkedIn, so you can connect and I will, like, if you want, I will share all of our documentation, which I use to learn about benchmarks, evals, and other usual stuff.